Extraterrestrial visitations and abductions have been argued over for many years, with skeptics calling most encounters a hoax, or point out that there is little supporting evidence. But a photo taken on Ilkley Moor on the morning of the 1st of December 1987 would cause many to rethink the phenomenon. Following his retirement from the police force, Philip Spencer, a pseudonym, had moved from London to remote West Yorkshire with his wife and child in order to be closer to his wife's family. They were a normal, everyday family who had little to no knowledge nor any interest of UFOs or aliens. The family had been living there for a while, and Spencer had become accustomed to the moors around the area when he decided one morning that he would take a walk to the village of Morton to his father-in-law's house. On his way, he would see if he could capture a photograph of some of the strange lights that were apparently quite frequent on the moors. Because of his intention, he took with him a camera. He also had with him a compass, as the visibility was often very limited, and he thought that he could use it to help direct him to his destination. He was not far into his journey when the fog began to fall thicker, and Spencer began to struggle to see around him clearly. Some would describe how the fog on the moors became so thick and eerie that it was as if it was alive, and this is how Spencer must have felt as he slowly and sure-footedly made his way along the small pathways. It was as he did so that he claimed that there came a gap within the fog, and he thought he made out a strange being. As he looked, he made out that the being appeared to be waving his arms at him, as if it was trying to tell him to move away. After working in the police force, Spencer was accustomed to keeping his nerve in situations that would rattle other people, and on this occasion he did so, and then remembering the camera, he quickly raised it and took a picture of the being that was still waving at him through the gap in the fog. Spencer yelled at the being to see what its reaction would be, and, as if startled, it retreated into the fog and disappeared. Thinking that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, he pursued it. He went after the being in the direction that it had been. As he approached close to the spot, he was astonished to see a craft that was rising from behind an outcrop on the moor. It was of a whitish colour and consisted of two saucer-shaped parts that were attached, with one being atop of the other. At the same time, he noticed that there was a loud humming sound. The strange craft rose into the air, and eventually it disappeared, and the sound stopped. As the silence again descended upon the moor, Spencer, being understandably shook up from the experience, decided that the journey he had planned was now not sounding as appealing as it had been, and he instead began to walk to the village of Mentor, which was approximately a 30-minute walk away. Two things would then happen that would make Spencer be more mystified by his experience. Firstly, as he walked, he would notice that the compass that he had taken with him was pointing in the opposite direction than it should have. Secondly, when he arrived in the village, the church clock would show the time 10 AM, but from Spencer's calculations, depending on what time he left home and approximately how long he had been walking for, he concluded that it should have been more like 8:15. Now feeling worried about what had happened to him, he decided that he would go to the town of Keighley so that he could get the film from the camera developed. the photo that he had taken would show that there was a being in the frame, although blurred from the dense fog that was present at the time. It was still possible to make out the being. Later tests would show that the being would have been approximately 4 feet tall. It was of bluish or greenish colour, and it had long arms. Spencer would go to Peter Hugh with the photo and story. Hugh was a UFO investigator, and later he would admit that Spencer seemed to come across as a genuine man. He began an investigation into the story and decided that the photo, being the best evidence, should undergo testing. Firstly, it was examined by a wildlife photographer, and he would confirm that it was no animal. It was then sent to the Kodak laboratory in Hampstead, and as far as they could tell, it had not been tampered with. Lastly, it was sent to Dr. Bruce Maccabee, who was an optical physicist with the US Navy. He replied with the following statement: "The slow film speed used for the low light conditions made the film too grainy for proper testing. I had great hopes that this case would prove definite. Sadly, circumstances prevent it from being so." After the incident, Spencer would begin to have dreams of starry skies that were out of character for him. Hughes eventually persuaded him to attend a session of regressive hypnotherapy. This was carried out by Dr. Jim Singleton on the 16th of March 1988. Also present at the sessions was Hughes and Matthew Hill, a journalism friend of Hughes. Under the sessions, Spencer would recall that as he walked along the moor, he had been abducted and taken aboard a craft. While on there, he had undergone medical type examinations, and then he was released back onto the moor. What was significant about this was that when experts examined the weather and climate information of that day, it would stand out that the conditions at the time of the photo were actually at a different time later. This would give weight to the suggestion that Spencer had taken the photograph after he had been abducted, and that demonstrates how the time lapse occurred. It could even be suggested that the being was one from the craft, and that it was not so much as trying to signal for Spencer to leave, but more that it could have been waving goodbye to him as he walked away from being released. The Ilkley Moor incident generated headlines in the UK at the time and remains one of the country's most famous UFO sightings. Nick Pope, a journalist who previously worked on the UFO desk of the Ministry of Defence, included this event in a 2011 list of top 10 UFO incidents in the UK. It has been cited as one of the most persuasive UFO incidents to ever occur. Skeptics have claimed that the whole incident is a hoax. They have said that the photograph is so blurry that it is far from proof of any alien visitors to Earth. They have argued that the alien in the photograph could easily be a man or a cardboard cutout. Skeptics have also asked why Spencer did not take a photograph of the craft, noting that such a photograph would be more difficult to fake. Skeptics have also dismissed the supposed physical evidence of the broken compass, saying that it is easily to manually wreck compasses. Whether or not the photo of the Ilkley Moor is true evidence of extraterrestrial visitation comes down to one question: do you believe?